We added coffee shops there, we added restaurants, and we have the big, huge wheel, which is called the Eye of the Emirate, with a musical fountain in front of it. And today, it is by far one of the most popular outdoor destinations. It is usually a challenge for us to actually promote outdoor destinations because we've been pampered to go to shopping malls, to shop and dine. And I think this is what we try to change here. The perception was totally changed into creating destinations for people that are surrounding those areas. We also are mandated to develop projects all around Sharjah Emirate, which means that we're developing in Kalba. Kalba is another city that sits on the Indian Ocean. We're developing a huge retail there. And Dibal Hassan is another small actually city that sits in the other part, which is next to Fujairah and Kalba. That's a development that's going to happen very soon in Dibal. So what we're trying to do here is to actually attract more retailers to open in Sharjah. Whoever that signed with us with Shurooq or with Al-Qasba or with all of our properties, we managed to make sure that every retailer is happy, is getting the number of visitors that he's expecting and getting the sales targets that he's actually trying to achieve here. We also have one of the very well-known Moroccan restaurants that have recently won an award as the best interior designed restaurant, which actually is the best interior designed restaurant in the whole of the United Arab Emirates. So very good restaurants, cafes, very popular places. We managed to do that by creating a lot of events and activities. And next week, with the National Day, we're going to have huge celebrations in all of those 3 destinations. And I urge you, if you're looking of developing outdoor destinations, you better check out the places that are in Sharjah because they're really amazing and they're places not to miss. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwan. I think we exceeded our time. Do we still have time for questions? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So first question for David Thurling. What made you to move and take on the challenge of a smaller and a relatively older mall after your experience in Dubai Mall and the Hill malls? The best and the biggest and the brand new malls that you could imagine in the world. So how did you decide to take that responsibility? It sounds very challenging.
Thanks. Thank you, Banu. That's an interesting question. I think the biggest problem we had at Dubai Mall was actually how to stop people coming. It was that busy. Some weekends you'd have 300,000 people coming in on Thursday. To be very honest with you, that's a monster of a shopping mall. It's an extremely good asset. A lot of it is just turn the lights on and let it do its thing. And the real challenge in this business is not managing a Dubai Mall. The real challenge in this industry for those that are working in smaller shopping malls is how to make those work. And you really have to apply your skills and your understanding of the industry far more effectively in an Al-Ghurair setting than you would at a Dubai Mall. And that's not to be disrespectful of MENA or Dubai Mall. But for me and for our team, we're extremely excited about the opportunity of doing something different in an industry that has for so many years done it the same way. And whilst what I talked about briefly before showed just a little glimpse of it, I can assure you that with the property, with the asset that we're managing, with the retail plans that we have and marketing in particular, we're going to try and do something completely different. And I believe by doing that, we'll get people to take notice of our property. And for me, I think that's an incredible opportunity in this industry. So,
Have passion.
I'm either that or crazy.
Great. I have a question to Marwan as well. Again, I think this is going to be a similar question. It's about the mega malls in Dubai. How is it that, Sharjah, with all these new great developments you're planning and doing, operating, will be affected by what Dubai is offering today? You are very close to Dubai, 15 to 20 minutes driving distance, and yet you have great initiations here how would you tackle the Dubai competition?
I think it's always great to be next to the most busiest city in the world, and that makes us very successful actually. The population of people living in Sharjah reaches almost 1 million, which means I think with a lot of issues facing people would want to move to the areas that are closer to them. And that's why we're developing destinations and we're not developing only shopping malls. So all of those destinations, yes, they do have a retail component, but the retail component is not the only thing. It's a destination that we create. It's time that you're going to spend. It's the time that you want to spend in a healthy way. So all of those destinations that we create are ideally located, and the encouragement of it is people actually can walk to it, and they don't even have to drive to it. However, in the other projects in Kalba and Riebe, all of those big developers that would like to develop shopping malls are looking only at Dubai. And I think, there are other parts of the Emirates that have huge potential. And if you talk about Riebe, Fort Fakan and Kalba, which are the three cities that sit on the other side of the United Arab Emirates, which sits on the Indian Ocean, there's a huge potential. People are tired of driving from Fujairah or Kalba to go all the way to Dubai. So you have to create something for them. So when Shurooq developed their project, we don't develop it only for the return on investment, but we develop it as a social impact for the people. And that's something that we as a government entity are responsible of. And we're very glad that a lot of retailers are keen to come with Shurooq and develop those projects. We are an investment authority that attracts investors. So any investor that would like to develop shopping malls, open restaurants or cafes, or fitness centers or cinemas will actually come to us and we will support them.
Thank you. George, you went through this exercise of converting a retail component to a leisure destination. So what did you learn from this exercise?
I think along with learning, it was more of an exploration process because I would like to quote something which my mentor told me long years before. One wouldn't have to actually find customers for their products, but they have to actually make products what the customers want. So we had to actually redefine our thinking in that way, wherein we had to actually analyze what the demographic wanted. We had to look at the cyclical changes. We had to look at the vision, which extended not only for 3 or 4 years, but in the span of 10 years. So we clearly understood we had to build something which demographic can absorb, and not in a short-term process, but it's more of a long-term process. And again, one more quote, an infamous quote which I would like to pick up from history. The risk of inaction is more than the risk of action. So you have to be very proactive rather than being reactive. So that's what I would like to share with other people who have similar experiences as well.
Thank you. One last question to Marc. How did you come up with this idea? What did get you inspired of putting all the retail streets in the world in one web base? And what is the outcome that you're expecting to achieve from that?
So our success so far is that we are bringing almost 500 brands in Europe on the street or into a shopping center. And the challenge was always to give them the best advice. And we couldn't tell them exactly where they should open all their shops in the world. And I made this example with Uniqlo. They want to know where are the best H&Ms and the best Zaras. And they would need a long time to find out where they should open their flagship stores all around Europe. And it takes them now for more than 5 years. And they are waiting until they know exactly where they can open the new flagship stores. And this brought us to the idea to create a database. It's coming from our book. We're doing a retail market study every year with 1,000 pages. So we are collecting thousands of new shop openings in the whole world in our database. And then finally, a couple of months ago, we started Streetfront to bring the whole today's offline retail real estate world online, so that everybody can look what's going on in the shopping streets and in shopping centers to have a better overview. And I think we'll change this retail real estate world and the shopping center world a little bit.
Yeah, very informative. Thank you. in general, to you all, what would be your advice on motivation to success in challenging environments to our audience? David?
What is the motivation? I think it's obviously the reward of achieving something that perhaps other people didn't think was possible. So certainly for us, that's a very big motivation.
Marwan?
That's a tough one, actually. What will motivate you? I think if you believe in it, keep on going. If you really believe in it, then it's going to work out. And if you get the right people, they're going to help you in doing it. But you have to believe in it.
I agree. George?
I think it's basically the passion which you carry along, especially people who work within retail. There's a national energy within them to think creatively, think positively, and there's nothing impossible. I mean, just to cite an example, the development, the Nation Towers development, we had the box which we accommodated with cinemas was actually 5.5 meters in height. And one wouldn't have imagined to actually put up a cinema within that. And there were column spans of 8.5 meters. But if you really believe, I think anything could be achievable. And that's what we saw as ground result there.
So, you, Marc?
And the fascination is to create something completely new with all the variety of retail brands we have in the world. That's fascinating me every day.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask the audience if you have any questions to our panelists, please. Please. Yes, you please. There's a microphone. Okay,
to Mr. Thurling. Two questions. Have you suffered from vacancy loss in this mall due to all the other malls here in Dubai? And the other question, are you considering to change or to modify in the design or to do anything on this level to make this mall more appealing to the new trends in shopping centers?
The answer is no, we haven't lost tenancies, or the vacancies remain very much within an industry acceptable standard. I guess the issue for our mall is not so much being fully occupied, but is it fully occupied by the right retailers? So the challenge for us is to remix and continue to source the tenants and the brands that are relevant to our customer. That's certainly a challenge for us. In terms of design, yes, we just expanded the mall. We opened in October an additional 40,000 square metres of new retail space, which is very beautiful, natural light, large atriums. So it's delivering a far more modern retailing environment for our customer. But look, ultimately, architecture is important, but it's most certainly not the most important thing. We have to ensure that the retail product, the offer, the tenants that we have, the brands that we have, really meets our customer head on. And if we get that right, we're on our way. But then what I was saying before is just having all the right brands is not necessarily going to make you more successful. You've got to put a little X factor into it, get a bit of sizzle on it. And that's the problem I find with shopping malls all over the world, is that they become very mundane very quickly. So we have to constantly be working the asset to keep it interesting, to keep it relevant, to make people want to come and enjoy their time there. So for us, it's all the things that you need to do to make it more successful. That's what we have to do.
Thank you.
Hello. So my question is today from RECon. And I see as a brand, it's a strong brand. I see it to be engaging. I see where you're going with the brand. But my question is, the challenge is how will that be implemented on the retail that you have? Because you know that all shopping malls, they have the same retail. It's exactly the same. So if you're a brand that is more towards the people, it's hip, it's young, it's cool, it's engaging the community, how will that reflect on your retail?
Well, you've said it all for me. Our brand is cool, it's young, it's engaging. And if every other mall in our catchment area has the same retailers, at least we have something interesting to talk about, and that's what we want our customers to think. You know, you've got to understand in this industry, you know, 75% of the shops in every shopping mall are the same. You know, it's the problem that we have. You can't not have those brands though. You can't not say, well, let's just be different for different sake. You've got to give people what they want, and they want the same brands. So we have to understand that, and then try to create some points of difference around it. So for us, you know, we're looking at creating Dubai's most exciting food and beverage precinct on our street front. If you know Riebe Road in Dubai, you know, it's probably one of the great boulevards in Dubai, and people come to this city and they don't know that. So we're going to create a reason for people to come to Riebe Road, because Riebe Road is a fascinating place. We're just a part of that landscape, and by default we will pick up the customers who enjoy that entire experience. But yeah, I mean, the challenge for shopping malls is that we're basically all selling the same thing. We're just doing it in different locations with different types of architecture. So I'm very interested to see how, with this Malls-AlGhurair Centre, we can actually get people thinking about the product in a different way. Not to think about it as a shopping mall, but to think about it as a part of a total precinct, and we're just simply another element of that. If you know Covent Garden in London, people go to Covent Garden in London for the street theatre, for the entertainment, for the buskers, for the food, yet the retail there does incredibly well, but no one goes there because of the retail. But it's by default and by association that the retail will work, and we believe that's very much part of our strategy.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Banu, and thank you, Banu, for hosting it. It's been great. So it sounds like what we need is passion, focus, dedication, hard work, perspiration, and just some good luck too. Thank you. My role now is to close the two-day conference, and I really wanted to thank every one of you here today who's been involved and around to make this conference a great success that it was, and our sponsors who are so generous with their time, effort, energy, and their contributions towards our organization. We truly appreciate what you've done, because without your support, of course, it's very difficult to move forward. So thank you for that. In terms of one last session that's available in the breakout session, which is on the other side of the hotel, we have John David Franklin, who has got a leadership in the shopping center industry, knowing what to look for. And yesterday there was a breakout session there as well. Today that's what he's talking about. So we wanted to have one last session.